Welcome again. And if my name is Gebbie, for those of you I have not met, I am president of Evolving Solutions, joining live from Omaha, Nebraska right now. And I am pleased to be joined by Michael Downs, our CTO at our headquarters in Minneapolis. And later you will meet Cam Hughes, the owner and winemaker at Cam X Wine. So hopefully everyone received their packet with the wine and chocolates, and we'll be having some fun today. So appreciate you joining us. And again, thanks for being here. A lot of you I know who Evolving Solutions is. I know we have some new clients on as well with us, but Evolving Solutions, this is our 30th year as a company. We just celebrated with our entire team in Minneapolis when it was negative 13 degrees 2 weeks ago. But we are uber focused on helping our clients modernize how they operate technology. So we really focus in on modernization, automation, and security. Our legacy was in the data center, but we have vast skills that we've invested in over the last many years around DevOps and containers and Kubernetes and cloud and networking and security and AI. And so we really help clients shift from spending their time and resources on just operating technology how they always have, to really shifting their focus on operating technology, modernizing it for the future. And if we're not helping drive outcomes for your business, we're doing something wrong. So we are uber focused on business outcomes. You'll hear us talk a little bit about that today. But very exciting time in the industry world. No shocker, you'll probably hear a little bit about AI today, but AI is not everything. And so we'll cover a few trends here. So let's kick off, Michael, because I think a lot of people want to drink some wine here in a little bit. So why don't you kick us off with the first trend for 26?
Sounds good. Did you say AI, Bo?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Well, we have 6 trends today, and they're all AI. No, I'm just kidding. It is the unavoidable topic that we all are spending all of our time talking about right now. But I do think that there's some important things to take into consideration as you look for a way to take advantage of AI inside of the business or the organization that you support. And so really for our first trend is operationalizing your AI platform. And what does that mean? So one of the things that we've really seen is that you can go out and use AI in what I would call a non-differentiated way by going out and using ChatGPT or Copilot or some of the other things where you can take your documents, ask it to go do some research for you, come back with a presentation or a summarized document. All those things are fantastic. They drive a lot of value, and you should absolutely continue to do them. It makes such a big difference in your day-to-day activities. But the thing that really starts to make AI important and different is when you start to use AI with your own data and being able to use your AI around the stuff that you already own, because that data and who you are and that piece of it is what differentiates you in the marketplace. So when we talk about AI, we're really talking about how do you take advantage of the data that's in your organization or accessible to your organization to do something differentiated and drive business value. And so in a lot of ways, AI is an application like everything else, like SAP or like other kinds of things where you need to be able to get data connected to an application that does something different for you and allows you to really see an outcome that you need. And we've talked before about if you worked with Evolving Solutions, we talk about available, reliable, secure. That same thing applies to AI, especially as it starts to weave its way into your core business. So AI readiness is really being able to make sure that your data governance is ready, that you understand your risk model. Security investments are really important. One of the things we often find our clients struggling with is understanding what permissions and what kind of profile they have of the data that they already have. A lot of clients have built governance and built compliance frameworks around the way that they traditionally run their business. Introducing AI into that environment creates new challenges and different ways that you need to look at your data and look at what permissions you have. So one of the big challenges we've worked with clients around is making sure that that happens properly. You also will oftentimes see fit for purpose compute. The big poster child for this, of course, is NVIDIA. But if you look around, you don't have to look very hard to see a lot of other organizations making deep investments. Google made investments years ago in their tensor processing units or TPUs, and aligning those properly with the right workloads or choosing the right workloads is different. The other interesting thing about this moment that we're in is moving from experimentation into actually impacting your organization. And how do those AI use cases impact your organization. So I've talked a bit about technology on this slide, but one of the most fundamental challenges really is making sure that you've identified the use case and then making sure that the platform underneath it can scale, that you can actually deliver the outcomes that you need as your business starts to adopt it more, and you can do it in a reliable and secure way. And then finally, using AI is similar to doing application development, but not completely. So you'll have heard people talk about ML pipelines or data pipelines, making sure that you understand how that AI development chain fits into your existing development platforms is extremely important. And being able to make that migration from using an application that that maybe didn't use AI before to inserting AI capabilities, that's actually how AI is going to get consumed, is inside of that application. So understanding how that new piece of the application development and release cycle impacts your application development and release process, especially as it comes to security, is super important. And so the other thing that we've seen a lot of is what's the right place to do your AI? And a lot of it's obviously living in clouds. People don't want to go out and buy 1,000 servers and then only need 10 when you're done with your training or whatever else. So moving it into AI, into a cloud where you can scale it up and down is become sort of the default use case. But the other use case we're seeing a lot of is when you want to be able to do some AI and be able to quickly get results at like an edge location where you don't have good bandwidth. So edge use cases or AI at the edge is also a really important trend. And I know, Bo, this is something you've done some reading around and talking to some of our partners with.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Michael. And I would say, as we think about the edge component, as I was reflecting on what you were saying, I wrote down a quote that I found a couple days ago, and I really like this. Operationalizing AI isn't just about deploying models. It's about building the organizational mindset to run AI as a sustained business capability. There's a lot of words there, but the organizational mindset is, I think, the key phrase. And we've talked to a lot of clients that say we're investing in AI, and it's still a science project, or we don't have leadership pushing it down, or we don't have grassroots up. And so that organizational mindset, I think, is key. And then as you talk about the edge, I've been blown away recently. Somebody might look to say edge isn't new, but I think edge is how we're talking about it is new, and it's arrived. It's not a future statement anymore. And I've been blown away by some of our vendor partners recently and some of the solutions that they've come out with in the last 6-8 months specifically, really targeting edge workloads, whether that's around AI and the explosion of data. But all of on this call probably, it's not simple. It's not just easy. It's not cost effective always to be sending everything back to a centralized cloud or a centralized data center. So how do we actually move the compute and the analytics closer to where the data is at? And so where that data is created and how do we then leverage real-time decisions, reducing latency between workloads and between applications, and then ideally keeping running even when connectivity is limited. We talked earlier about outcomes, and I think from a business perspective, edge, computing at the edge, AI at the edge, insights at the edge, and doing it in the right way with the right framework and the right governance and the right automation and the right integrations is going to drive faster insights. It's going to drive less downtime. And ideally, it's helping you act on the data in the moment rather than, after the opportunity is passed and, God willing, before a problem happens. But it also is allowing organizations to just think about their models differently. So especially we see a lot in healthcare clients and distribution clients that have hundreds, dozens, hundreds, thousands of sites. How do they think about the data differently? How do they think about the workloads differently? And retail especially is another key use for this where we're seeing this. But it all sounds great. Put have your data in those areas or in that edge and have the analytics there. But it also opens up another set of challenges. So as you think about the day two challenges around that, you have to now think about management differently. You have to think about security differently. You have to think about lifecycle support differently. You also have to think about skills and people differently, right? Often we're talking about these are in dozens, hundreds of sites. How do you make sure things have the right uptime? And if there are problems, you can address those. So I mentioned earlier when we started, there's a lot of new technologies that have been really emerging in this space in the last 6 months that are really modernizing how all this is coming together from a computer storage and network of security and an analytics standpoint. So if you're not familiar with those, please reach out. We're happy to talk about that. But I would say it's not the edge that we've been talking about for the last 5 years. It really has emerged. Sorry, Michael. I get passionate about that. I really like
You
it.
should be.
So yeah, and then another one. And if we can point back in our technology history, right? There's going to be buzzwords. It's cloud. Now it's AI. And in the last couple of years, it's been zero trust. And I think, zero trust as well. It's not a one size fits all. There's not one product or solution that solves that. But now as we think about AI, our security challenges that we're seeing from clients are also changing and emerging. We're really thinking differently about what identity means, what trust means. And for the last couple of years, right, a lot of clients, a lot of organizations, many of you on this call have been on a zero trust journey, implementing processes and technologies and governance structures. But the world is already changing so fast and is changing so fast. Now we have new AI models, we have agents, we have automations and autonomous insights making decisions on behalf of the business. Well, those, if I'm thinking about how to attack a business or where there's some vulnerabilities, it's those new areas there. Think about the automations or things that are actually making those decisions without human impact. How do we make sure that those are governed in the right way and have an extreme level of security and scrutiny? And so that really expands what we're talking about. It expands the boundaries of zero trust substantially. So because you're not now just thinking about the devices and the users, but it's those AI-driven decisions and the machine-to-machine interactions that are really happening at scale. As a business at Evolving Solutions, part of our 30th anniversary, we're redoing our website, and that's going to be launching here in April or May. But I sat in on a briefing with our design agency and our marketing team a couple of weeks back, and they, right now everybody talks about search engine optimization, and they're making it now, it's going to be agentic engine optimization. They're telling us that in the next 3 years, 70 to 75% of our interactions with our website is not going to be from a human being. It's going to be from agents. And so not only how do we build that capability, but more importantly, as a business, how do we protect ourselves from what that world is going to be? So I was kind of blown away. We're in technology, but our marketing firms are talking about this. And really, they're saying you have to make sure you're building the right structure and the framework to secure yourself. So I thought that was just an interesting example recently. But these AI security tools that we're talking about around zero trust, they're extremely powerful. But the key part of this as well is they don't replace expertise. The right people in the right roles are still going to be needed, and they're becoming more important than ever. And so how do we leverage these tools and technologies to augment the teams so that these skilled practitioners, these skilled technologists can really focus on the important work and interpreting the signals that are coming from these tools and coming from the process that's been developed to make the right decisions and take the right action. So we like to say governance has to meet automation. And I think this is a key part here. Policy enforcement is part of this. So it's the technology, it's the policies. More importantly, it's the people then that have to make sure they're adhering to these, and also that are supporting this as we move forward. So Michael, this is our middle buzzword, right? Zero trust, but it means there's so many things, and I just think it's absolutely critical right now.
Absolutely. And as we start transitioning a little bit to the next point, I think what's really interesting about this too is not just that has the attack surfaces expanded as we've brought AI capabilities into the organizations, but you don't have to go a day without seeing how AI has also accelerated the ability to attack, right? That ability for lower skilled users to be able to generate scams, to be able to actually go against the infrastructure in different ways, to be able to do more advanced attacks with less skill because they can take advantage of AI tools to be able to go do it. That's going to be a really important challenge that we're going to have to face going forward. So the tools that we can apply to security so that our high value, high skilled employees and analysts can respond to the things that are important is going to be critical. And that leads me a bit to this mature integration to manage complexity concept. So we've been talking about integration for a long time and integrating IT operational tools in particular. It's been the holy grail for years and years. I remember in the early aughts talking about single pane of glass, or if you were back in the IBM camp back in the early aughts, it was sense and respond, being able to figure out what's going on in your environment and automatically respond to it. So this has been going on for a long time. I think what's different now is a few things. One is the complexity has gotten so extreme that our ability to pull these things together, to see your whole environment, to have comprehensive visibility across everything, has become not just a nice to have, it's become a necessity. And as you get this comprehensive visibility, much like security, I can't have all of that dump into one place and let one person respond to it. It has to be automated in a way that allows for interactions, it allows for automated responses. So there's this new model of observability and integration that's starting to emerge. And really, we're seeing two patterns. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the rise of platforms that are being uh, advocated for and delivered by our vendor partners. You see it oftentimes in security, where a security provider will continue to do acquisitions, so they've sort of got the full stack available to you. You've seen it in application performance management or observability, where again, a provider will acquire a bunch of other pieces, so they've got this full stack that goes all the way from logging through traces and metrics all the way up to end user experience. I just said two things that clearly overlap with each other. So being able to see how those two things come together and what platforms actually deliver the outcomes that you need as a business is a really important decision point. There's also this massive proliferation of tools, and being able to choose which tools do which jobs and how they deliver the outcomes that you need for your business is a pretty nuanced and tailored conversation. It's one thing to say platform is the choice, just pick a platform and we'll get everything inside of the platform. That can be a great choice for some organizations. Another great choice can be stepping back and saying, okay, what am I trying to accomplish? I've got a set of tools. I need them to integrate with each other and deliver outcomes to me where I can see the things I need to see, and I can also respond the way I need to respond. And there may be gaps, there may be individual small pieces, but being able to easily integrate those pieces, being able to pull that together so that you have a comprehensive view that can be responded to by automation tools and by application professionals, SRE engineers, by security engineers. There's going to be a lot of constituents that need that information to come together. And so I'm going to call it aspirational trend, and I'm going to buck the hot take. I'm not agentic AI is going to change all of this, and I think everybody's been saying this for a year. I think last year in January of 2025, I don't think it was ours, but everybody said 25 was the year of agents. Agentic AI was supposed to come of age in 25. I'm not sure that happened. I think 25 was the year where we realized exactly how difficult agentic interaction is going to be. And if you've been following, I'm going to call it the fiasco around OpenClaw for the last couple of weeks, can't believe it hasn't even been a month yet that sort of burst onto the scene. And people are talking about having an agent operate on your behalf and buying things on your behalf, deleting your email for you. All those things that where something's happening on your behalf we're at a very early stage of that. The reality, however, is agents are going to take the place of traditional integrations. We're going to go from an an API-based integration where I'm using JSON code or whatever else to be able to connect two things together to agents talking to each other, whether it's using agent model context protocol or some other way of talking between agents. It's going to simplify the ability to integrate those tools. That's going to happen over a period of time, and it's going to happen slowly, relatively speaking, relative to how hyped everything has been up to this point anyway. And understanding which tools need to talk to each other is going to be a key piece of making sure that we actually are successful with this. So as we start,
can I?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
Well, as you're talking through that, right, you're talking platformization, which can mean things to the compute team, to the cloud team, to the security team, the networking team. So you've got 4 different groups I just mentioned there. Integrations is often the dev team, the app team. AI, often we see AI center of excellence in large clients. We see that in other clients within the app teams. And then visibility there touches all of those. I think as you're talking about that, maybe share some thoughts on why it's so difficult, right? And it hasn't been, in our experience, the technology. It's
Yeah.
been more of the silos, and maybe
Yeah.
just share some insights around that if you wouldn't
Yeah,
mind.
sure. So Bo's got a fantastic point. So it's a combination of the people silos and the data silos. So operational IT data isn't any different in a lot of ways than other data in that it shows up in formats that may not be compatible or may not allow you to reconcile things across different platforms or across different tools. Um, that's a technology solvable problem. I often say technology is easy, people are hard. It's the people part that's the actual hard part of this. Everybody's got their tool, everybody's got their way of doing their job, everybody's got their way of working inside of their space to make that happen. So as the tools become more and more available and more mature, it's going to require teams to shift from working inside of their own tool to being able to see across the variety of data that they're getting and the variety of tools that's generating it, and being able to sort of step sideways and turn and look at the problem a little bit differently, and be able to see. One of our architects calls it, you need to dream what it is that you could do if now that you've got these tools. And I think that's an important transition that's going to be challenging for some companies to make. My guidance there is experiment and look at your options. And even before that, understand your business. We've seen companies do heavy investments in making IT work, but usually those are companies that they're with AI. Usually those are companies that are IT companies, right? Most of you on the phone have run an IT organization inside of a company that's responsible for something else. And so your heavy AI investment is oftentimes going to be in that business process. Take advantage of some of the thought process and some of the learnings you're getting inside of the business to inform what you're doing inside of your IT organization, and then use that to be able to transition to transform your team to being able to work across that variety of different set of tools.
Yeah, well, that's great. I think that's a perfect way to sum it up, Michael. Thanks for the additional insight there. And it is all about breaking down those silos, right, and leveraging this across the enterprise. And I think the other focus there as we go into the next slide here, I think again, these are enterprise disciplines, right? Enterprise-wide disciplines. If you maybe share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, and so we talked quite a bit about AI and integration. The other piece of this that we have to pay attention to is the cost model for this. And there's a lot of things going on right now. AI, if you do it in the cloud, has a cost profile that a lot of organizations don't completely understand. How often you use a token or how many tokens you use over a certain period of time makes a big difference in the cost model for you, and it's not necessarily transparent. So understanding how to take advantage of tools that are in the marketplaces, if you're in multiple tools, multiple clouds, maybe taking advantage of a third-party tool to be able to pull those costs together and really analyze them. It changes the dynamics of cost. And we've really, over the last decade and a half, with the rise of cloud computing being the primary development platform, gotten really sharp at being able to use FinOps to really enable understanding of how much a business service costs to deliver, and therefore being able to compare that against the value that that service delivers to the business. That's incredibly powerful. We've dreamed about this for years, to be able to say, I want to be able to show the value of technology to the business. Well, with FinOps and in the cloud, I can get really granular about that and start to look at how that warehouse management service is really specifically delivering value to me if I'm delivering it through a cloud service, for example. But there's sort of a twist to this, and Bo, I'm hoping you'll comment on this a little, is as we get into these new AI delivery models, or as we adopt AI, there are delivery models that are going to include, as Bo mentioned before, edge. We're also seeing clients choose to keep data in their data center for a large variety of reasons. Some of it is about data gravity, some of it is about security concerns, but all of a sudden we've got a return to traditional data center, or in order to deliver AI capabilities that also impacts the cost.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think we're seeing a lot of either clients looking at repatriation and what does that mean from a technology standpoint and a financial standpoint. We talked about edge already, and you mentioned the words fit for purpose, right? Are there different ways of thinking about how we leverage or how we deploy our data and our applications. We're seeing a resurgence, if you will, around some of our partners that are either in managed services or really outsourcing managed services, kind of a quasi there, but really in those offerings that are adjacent to the hyperscalers. So again, whether you're doing it at your edge or whether you're leveraging some of the third-party solutions that are closer to the hyperscalers, there's so many different ways now. But with the tools that are available, we're really seeing if an organization, especially from a finance-driven perspective, the technology leaders that understand how to work with their finance groups to actually show the true cost of technology across no matter where that data and where those applications are. That's one thing. Where's the cost? How do we control it? But then two, how do we make decisions based on the economics behind that? So it's not just the technology decision and the platform decision, but how do we do the right thing for the business? And utopia then is those organizations that can say, and here are the business applications or processes or outcomes or revenue generating activities. So there's a wide variety of where people are on that journey, but that is the utopia of actually being able to say, here is how we're driving the business forward.
Yeah, and I just to add to that, everybody's aware of the massive economic impact of the data center build out and all the things that are going on in order to create the capacity to use AI. We all are really aware too that that's impacting the cost of compute and the cost of a lot of other things. So there's going to be quite a bit of volatility around those things in the coming year, and being able to really get your hands on it, both from a cloud perspective and an on-premise perspective, is going to become increasingly important because that volatility is going to be a real challenge.
Yeah, I agree. And I think as we move to the last run, right, I'll equate what you just said to proper planning. And we're seeing it every day. I saw 3 vendor announcements yesterday of price increases for their solutions, anywhere from 8 to 40% because of what's happening in the supply demand for memory and other componentry. So planning is going to be absolutely critical from a technology standpoint. Planning is also extremely critical from a team standpoint. So if you've joined us for any of these, the last 3 or 4 years, we've had some variant of skills on here, but it's continuing to change. You've seen the tens of thousands of layoffs just in the last 60 days. Teams are getting smaller, expectations are getting higher, and organizations are often turning to automation and AI to really, be force multipliers. That sounds great when you put that in a presentation or you put it in a press release. There's a real gap from that, that highlight and that press clip to how it's actually working. I was just with a client at dinner not too long ago, and they have about a couple thousand employees, and they've deployed, this is an end user AI example, but they deployed Copilot across the entire enterprise. They offered training across that, but the CIO said, I can tell that 40-something% of my people are not using that technology that we've paid for, we've trained on, and we're saying you have to do to your job. That's not a failure on that employee's part. That's honestly a failure on leadership's part, because you can't just train somebody one time and say, here you go. And so I was looking at some data the other day. So IDC says a third of organizations actually feel that they're fully prepared to adopt AI-driven ways of working. 1/3. If you look at CEO data, 75, 95%, depending on who you look at, of CEOs say AI is critical to their business. So that's what the CEO is saying. Their technology leaders saying maybe 1/3 of us are actually ready to do that in a meaningful way that we can actually show outcomes. And there's another study recently by a group called Section AI. This was fascinating. 97% of the workforce is using AI poorly or not at all. A quarter or 25% see no time savings, and 40% say they could take it or leave it. So what that really means is 4 out of 10 employees say, I don't need AI to do my job, or I don't see how AI can help me. And these are knowledge workers. This is not the entire workforce. These are knowledge workers. 4 out of 10 employees are saying, AI is not going to help me do my job better. That's a failure from leadership and how we think about this and how we roll out training. And earlier we talked about it has to be a business framework or a business priority. This has to be continuous, right? Continuous education, embedding AI into daily workflows, and more importantly, clearly articulating how this will provide value to every team member. It's not replacing their job, it's augmenting their job. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there. So as there are fewer and fewer entry-level jobs in the knowledge workforce. We've got to focus on skills development for our professional employees to make sure that there is, a robust process there and it's not a one-time thing. So I think that's going to be a big trend as we go through this year, is that just continual education and expectation setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just add to that as we sort of wrap up here that one of the things that is interesting too is we're at a bit of a blip in this technology cycle. There's actually quite a few studies out there that show that people are they're less productive, not more productive with AI. Well, why is that? They're trying to figure out how it fits into their workflow the way they've always done it. And we're really at a moment where we're being forced to reimagine the workflows, but there's nobody better to do that than the people who are in the middle of it. And so to Bo's point, the leadership has got to be able to provide continuous training, and not just here's a tool, here's how you use it, but the encouragement and the envisioning, the visioning, the forward-looking perspective to be able to see how that's going to change the way you work. So key trends for 2026. Thank you for joining us for this. A lot of these are around AI, but obviously making sure you've got the right platform, making sure that you got your compute and your storage where the data lives, rethinking your zero trust framework to make sure that all those little agents that are going to be talking to each other are actually going to have identities. How do we make that work in order to be able to bring in the mature integration that we need? Put a bow around it with being able to understand the real true cost as we change deployment models, as we change places that we may see AI happen, or that we may just see business work happen. AI is going to become business work. It's going to be synonymous. We're not going to be talking about it in 5 years. We're just going to be talking about business applications. So understanding the cost of that and how that works is really critical. And finally, make sure you're investing in your workforce, both the folks who are there that you need to skill up. Bo mentioned, change in how we're looking at entry-level jobs. Reimagine your entry-level workforce. Reimagine your talent development pipeline. There's going to be some changes there that we're going to have to take into account too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bo to wrap it up.
Yeah. No, thanks, Michael, and again, thank you everyone for joining us. I think it's 4:35, which means it's wine time. So I'll just say, if there's things that we talked about today that you have thoughts on, questions on, want to engage in a discussion, or if there's things that we can be doing better to help you, please don't hesitate to reach out to either your account executive or send an email to us at info@evolvingsol.com. But I'll end where I started by saying thank you. This is our 30th anniversary as a team, as a company. We say our passion is creating enduring relationships, and we take that very seriously. We have a lot of clients and organizations that have been clients since Jamie Gamak, our founder, opened the doors 30 years ago, and they're still clients today. And we have some of you, I know we have one person on this call, we just signed our new client paperwork yesterday. And so whether you've been here 30 years or one day, your business and your trust matter more than anything, and we want to be here for you, for years ahead. So don't ever hesitate to reach out.